Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Today, we have with us Nate Harvey, who has kind of an extended background. I wanted to have him on here, first of all, because I don't ever really get to sit down and talk to Nate. It seems like we run into each other, but we're busy. But he does so much with the Elite FTS. He's been a coach. He's been a lifter. He's just done a wide variety of things. And I know he's an accomplished power lifter. He squatted over 1,000 pounds, benched over 750, pulled over 750, and I believe your total is 2,450. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And then what I don't know is, what is your athletic? I want to get into your athletic background. Like, where did you come from? How did you get into powerlifting?
We'll go way back. So like any kid, I was into football early on, basketball. I grew up in a small town, so there was nothing to do. Like later on in high school, when I actually got into lifting, we had to drive like 45 minutes just to get to the gym, the local YMCA. So like there was nothing to do with sports, and it was around, I think I was like 12 years old. My old man bought a seated rower from Sears, and it was the old like 2-handle thing with the pistons on the side, the hydraulic things.
I remember those.
And yeah, he would try to tell me, like, you need to go on here for 20 minutes, just take it nice and easy. And so of course I was like, I want to get faster. So I would hop on the stupid thing, blast Iron Maiden, like go as hard as I could for 10 seconds, and then I was gassed. And that was kind of just always my mindset. And like luckily he kind of saw, like, I started doing that, and I remember I would do like plyos on my stairs because some guy at work that he worked with said, if you want to dunk, jump up the stairs. So I was doing that like 4 times a week. And then he was like, hey man, let's get you a weight set, thankfully. So I got the weight set, and got probably similar to your story and a lot of others. That was kind of the end of,
was it plastic weights that were filled with concrete?
No, I got the fancy ones. It was a weeder, but the plates were like this steel or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had that for like 2 years, and then I think my 9th going into 10th grade year, he's like, okay, let's get you something better. And we went to Dick's and got like a standard size power rack. And like when that happened, that was it. Like I stopped playing guitar. Like the only thing I cared about was like lifting, sports, and girls,
Yeah.
Like all other hobbies just fell off. So yeah, it's like small town, like I said, and I just did football and basketball. Football was like my passion. Basketball was kind of, because that's what everybody else did. I liked the sport of basketball, but I was not good at all. Mm-hmm. Like my kids are starting to get into sports, and they'll get frustrated about not scoring enough points or whatever. So I always tell them the story like, hey, my highest scoring game was 12 points, and we had 4 overtimes. So it was like we played 2 games. So basketball was kind of not my thing. And then I didn't play any spring sports. My junior year, we showed up for football practice. This is how popular football was in my town. We had 11 guys show up.
Wow.
First day of practice. So coach goes, there's no practice today. Go try to get your friends to play football. So we were terrible at football, but I loved it. And I lifted, I got up to like 225 or so my senior year. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I told my coach, like, hey, I want to try to play college ball. Can I play fullback and instead of line? So maybe I get a shot somewhere. So then I went and played D3 football up in Brockport. And I talk about it all the time, like it's the greatest thing ever. But to me, it was like the NFL. Yeah. Like I got to play 4 more years of football, It was just like lifting was always, looking back, I probably almost enjoyed getting ready for football as much as I liked playing football, so, and that was kind of it. And then my senior year, going into my senior year, I was like, so I started out in college as a fullback, and I was like a huge Mike Allstott fan. Like probably had almost a man crush on him a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was looking for like, what does this guy do in the weight room? Because like if I train like that, I can play like he does.
Right.
You know, it doesn't work out like that.
No, but we all had that. We
Unfortunately.
all had that mentality. I remember when I was a kid too. It's like, just get stronger. I just need to get stronger. All I need to do is get stronger.
Yes. Yeah. What's he doing in the weight room? So I stumbled on an article where, excuse me, he was using chains on his bench and squat. So I was like, that's the secret. And then so I went on the internet, and one of Dave's articles popped up, one of Louis' articles,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a conjugate template, and I used that going into my spring going into my senior year, and I got moved to guard, offensive guard, O line, but I felt the best I'd ever felt, like recovery, strength, explosiveness, all that stuff. So obviously, like in it, when I was a teenager, my dad kind of mentioned like there's a job called strength coach. You know what I mean? So that seed was kind of planted, and that was where I kind of wanted to go. And then I stumbled onto that my senior year, and I'm like, this is the secret sauce. Like I'm not Michael Stott, but I feel the best I've ever felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was and it just kind of took off from there.
So then did you end up getting your CSCS or whatever the heck? Like,
Yeah, that stupid thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I did. Like right after college, I got it, and then I let it lapse a couple times and retook the test, and yeah, that's all because you have to, like, now you have to have it even to interview for a college job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one of those things like that, and a master's degree you have to pretty much have anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah, I went and did that.
I've had a couple instances. I did some photo shoots with Muscle and Fitness magazine, and they had me go to the URSA show one time. You know, where all the new
Uh,
equipment comes out, and I got to meet their exercise physiologist, and we stayed up till like 4 a.m, and I just blew his mind with
yeah,
all the stuff. And because we're in the lobby and I'm demonstrating squats and I'm making embrace, and he's like, "Holy shit, I've never heard this stuff." And he eventually moved on, and he tried to get me to come speak at some of the conferences and stuff. And they're like, "Well, does he have a degree?" And he's like, "Who gives a shit? Like, he's one of the top lifters in the world." And they're like, "Yeah, but he has to have a degree." And it was like, okay,
it,
if that's what you guys think.
yeah, dude. I understand having like a standard of entry, or those types
Mm-hmm.
of things like screening, but like some of the best stuff I learned is from lifters.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
the
It,
guys that are
it's
actually out doing it.
yes, yeah, and like a lot of their stuff they teach is kind of opposite of what experienced lifters would say on
Mm-hmm.
form and stuff like that. So like people ask me, how do I pass the test? I go, just memorize it and spit it back out.
Yes.
It's it's not the golden ticket to knowledge.
No, it was interesting. I watched a clip. I think it was this morning. I watched one of your clips on your Instagram, which I recommend you guys follow. Isn't it Nate Harvey 2450? Yeah,
Yes.
there's a lot of good shit on his Instagram. But I was watching one of the clips, and you were talking about how, well, if I want to get my guys to sprint faster, I'm going to go to a sprint coach. And there's all this accepting of so many different coaches. Some of my niece was a good softball player, and it's like, well, she has a throwing coach, she has a hitting coach, she has all these other coaches. But then when it comes to the weight room, they won't go look at, like, well, who's the strongest, best people doing this? And that's
Yeah, it's
really
weird.
backwards thinking to me.
100%. 100%. I don't get it. I don't know if it's like the powerlifting stigma, or because like in college I always ran a conjugate system, and I would talk whenever I talked to somebody who was doing something similar. It always came with the caveat of, yeah, we do West Side, but we modify it. We make it for athletes. And in my head, I was always like, you don't have to change much.
Yeah, yeah, you
Like,
really don't.
you go talk to Usain Bolt and change all the stuff that he said because you think you know better? No. Like, and there's kind of this thing with powerlifting. I think it's because of the way we look,
Yeah.
possibly. You know what I mean? I don't want my kids to look like that. Well, one, they won't because they don't have the dedication or put the time in, and there's 20 other factors, but
Yeah.
it's funny to me.
Well, I think a
I
lot of
don't
it,
know. It
because
doesn't make sense.
I have a couple of, well, I have one right now, but I had a couple arena football guys I was coaching. And it was like, dude, you still need to do your stuff in the field, and I'll help you in the off season with your sprinting and all that stuff. Like in the gym, we're here to get you stronger. Like, so it's not really about football. So you're going to do, instead of being a power lifter where you're just doing all the shit in the gym, we need to incorporate the shit in the gym and your other stuff that you're going to do on the field. But in here, I just need to get you strong. And I don't have to have 1,000-pound squatter, but I need you to be able to push around 400-pound guys pretty easily. So,
Yeah.
like in the gym, it's strength training. How did I get the strongest? And I think one of the interesting things too is when I went into the Highland Games, I threw in college for 2.5 years. So I had some experience throwing. But the Highland Games is throwing a whole lot of different shit that I had never touched. I went in my very first competition and was like a high ranked A, which is like just below pro. It wasn't because of my athleticism. It's just because I was goddamn strong. And,
Well, I'm glad you said that because, like, there was a period of time in strength and conditioning when everybody wanted to do like strongman routines because it was functional strength.
mm-hmm.
And I would just sit like, yeah, it's good to use some of that stuff, but like you'd see people like throwing the pendulum went too far. They took their whole program that way. And I just want to tell people like those guys didn't get like that doing those events. They got like that by just lifting weights, and then they were able to go practice the events. And it's frustrating.
And a lot of
I feel like the answer's so simple.
Yeah, a lot of them still to this day do a basic weight program, and then practice the technique on the implements.
Yeah,
because the implements are actually pretty hard on your body. I mean, lifting the Atlas stones, a lot of things can happen bad.
Yeah. Yep. Every time I've never done it, but every time I watch somebody, like my pecs cramp up and my low back, I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
Go easy there, buddy.
I have a very, I always call it blue collar, just growing up a blue collar family. I'm like, there's some complications to strength training, and it can be pretty intense with, I mean, especially the better you get, but like to basically just get stronger for most people, they try to overcomplicate it, and it's really not. It's fairly simple if you just look at it logically and approach it. And then as you get better, of course, it's going to get more putting 10 pounds on an 800-pound bench is a whole lot different than putting 10 pounds on your 185-pound bench.
Yeah. I feel like for 99% of athletes, like if you just get really good at the basics, you'll be way ahead of most people, because most people don't worry about the basics and get real good at them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure those football guys you work with came to you and got a lot stronger in a short amount of time, and they felt way better just because of that. Because I've seen it happen hundreds of times.
It's actually interesting because like one of the first things I do, I'm really big on rooting and bracing. So I go over that with everybody. I have clients that are in their 70s. The first day we go over rooting and bracing. And I've had some of my football players that I'll catch at like the end of a summer. And so I only get to work with them for 4 to 6 weeks. They call me as soon as they get back to school, and they're like, Chad, I'm hitting people harder than I've ever hit people. And I'm like, well, how strong can I get you in 4 to 6 weeks? Like it wasn't a huge difference in strength, but we started working technique, and now you're using the right muscles. And if you learn how to brace, it will transfer into the field because your body learns that, oh shit, I'm going to hit this dude. I need to brace.
Yep. It's all about the basics, man. And I've seen a ton of and that's why Louis thought getting football guys ready was so easy, because they hadn't seen any of this stuff, and you give them a little, like they have a high genetic ceiling to start with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you're a high level football player, your genetic ceiling probably pretty high, and then you do the right strike stuff, and it's just boom, they take off.
Yeah, and like because like with when I first my college guys kind of frustrate me because I get them for a summer, fix all their shit, and then when they come back the next summer, I'm like, what the fuck happened. Like, because their technique and shit sucks, and a lot of that. I mean, I think if they'll have them be these quad dominant squatters, and their posterior chain's weak. And I'm like, but they need to train their posterior chain. That's what they need on the field. Like, I don't understand why you guys can't understand this.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, this is why I always love the conjugate. Like, once I figured out the conjugate stuff and I kind of realized, like, just the basic template, the way it's set up, it'll help you recover more. Because you're like, typically you're not doing, 3 to 4 or 5 barbell exercises. People think because I play a sport, every single lift I do needs to be a ground based activity, compound movement. Thank you, Husker Power, by the way, for that one. But like, do your big 1 or 2 barbell movements and then hit all the other, bring up their weak areas with the smaller exercises, and they can recover.
Right.
And they're going to feel so much better.
Which honestly kind of makes sense, because you guys are practicing on the field. Like, your athleticism and all those movements are getting done on the field. We're in the gym. You're here for me to get you stronger and pick up your weak muscle groups. So just let me do that. Not everything has to be fucking like an athletic movement to pick that strength up, and it will transfer to the field because you're still doing it on the field. It doesn't seem that complicated to me. I don't understand.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the athletes, it's surprising to me how many coaches don't listen or observe this. Like, why are the kids so beat up? You know what I mean? Well, part of it's our sport, absolutely. But part of it's the loading you're putting on them too.
Right.
Like, it's too much. They don't sleep, they don't eat, they go kick the shit out of themselves practice. They get hammered every fucking weekend. Like, even, and that's why a lot of these programs work, because they have super high genetic ceiling kids.
Right.
So they can throw all this bullshit at them and it works. There was I have a customer who's a strength coach in one of the Power 5 conferences. And during the COVID year, like right after the COVID year, this team that they play against, their injuries went way down. And everybody thought it was a change in the programming. And he goes, it wasn't the programming. It was just because they didn't train as much because of all the COVID regulation bullshit.
Right.
So they had less load put on them, and then going into the next season, they were that much more healthy. I was like, that's really interesting, dude, because I never thought of that. He's like, yeah, it's all this shit you see on Twitter where everybody's praising so-and-so is bullshit.
That totally makes sense, though. I think that's one of the big things. I mean, I think it's interesting with younger people, because they're just going to recover better. I mean, generally.
Yeah.
But then, like you said too, they don't sleep good, they don't eat good. So, like, even though they're younger and their body's naturally going to heal faster, if they're not really focused on their recovery, they're still going to be behind. They're still only going to be able to do so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, honestly, a lot of athletes don't give a shit about the weight room.
Yeah.
So if you give them simpler things to do in there, it's going to help you more, because they don't have to. I shouldn't say this because you want them to be engaged, but it makes them more dummy proof. The simpler you make it in the weight room, the less they can screw up and the less they have to be engaged. Like our basketball team, they didn't like to lift weights. I'm sure part of that was my messaging and how I maybe didn't get as much buy-in as I could have looking back. I'm sure that's part of it. But also too, basketball guys are notorious for not wanting to lift weights. So like, we just did speed squats during the season and the one year was just belt squat. I didn't even put a bar on their back. And we did a bunch of dumbbell bench because they didn't want to load a barbell up. And then we tested them after season, and all their markers improved just from that little bit of stimulus. That's
super interesting, though. Because I think that I definitely think we look too much into lifting heavy all the time. And I know with people like me and probably like you when you were growing up, we liked that. Like, I loved lifting heavy. Like, max effort's the greatest thing in the world to me. But sometimes we don't need that. And it's funny you say that, because I was thinking this morning is I still haven't rolled out me going back to do some master shot put stuff. And I thought, you know what? I would be interested to see, because I mean, if I'm going to throw the shot put, the heaviest thing I'm going to lift is 16 pounds. But I got to be super explosive with that 16 pounds.
Right.
So would I be better off going like 3 dynamics, 1 max, or just running dynamic completely for a certain period of time to just get as explosive as possible? Because at that point, I mean, how much max effort do I need? I mean, I think you need to throw it in to some extent, but how often?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're spot on. One thing I did notice with like inexperienced lifters though, are swimmers and throwers. Because I tried that like a couple cycles. Um, we didn't pull max effort out completely, but I probably pulled it out too soon.
Mm-hmm.
So when they got to their big meet, they felt weak. They weren't. They could have come in and done their normal maxes and been fine, but I think they felt kind of flat. So like I think you're absolutely right, but I think they like the more inexperienced athlete needs that heavy stimulus. Maybe
Right.
it's a nervous system thing, but yeah, you're 100% right.
Nervous system, or possibly even a mental issue.
Yes.
Like I
Yeah.
see a lot of that too. Well, I haven't lifted heavy. Like, so what? Like,
Yeah.
the house doesn't change nothing. I think because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Look,
Wendler's kind of experienced the same thing with his high school kids, where they don't max out very often, but when they do, their maxes always go way up.
yeah. 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 There's, like a lot of the literature and stuff. The Russian, Prilipin start, you can hang around 80% and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, looking back, probably could have, maybe we didn't need to do as much max effort stuff, but the kids liked it. So we'll fuck it. We'll
Yeah.
run it up every once in a while,
Well, I think when we're talking about that, like I have some issues with the whole science, throwing the word science in all the time. I actually, my last podcast I did it. I'm getting really tired of getting on Instagram and people are bagging on other people's programs when that person is a successful bodybuilder or a successful lifter. I'm like, you're telling me his program doesn't work, but I'm looking at him, and to me, it seems like it's fucking working. And so it irritates the shit. And they're like, my study says that this is better. And I'm like, well, if your study says it's better, how the hell did that guy get so huge? How the hell is he so strong? So I think there's a difference in that. And I think like a lot of times what we don't look at is like, okay, if you have people doing 80%, what is the force production? Like that's going to be a big difference. Like if I can have people do dynamic work, but if they don't really know how to put 100% of force into it, is it really going to get the result? And if the people don't know how to lift with intent, is it really going to get the result? So it seems to me there's always these other multiple of equations that people don't want to consider when they're talking about the training and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's like when I'm coaching people, there's like two big things. Like first is the form's got to look good. And two is your intent into the bar has to be there.
Yes.
I think if you teach athlete, just going to say all athletes, if you can get them to do that, they're ahead of most people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very rare to go on like Instagram or Twitter or whatever and see college athletes actually trying to fucking hammer the bar.
Right.
Like to me, they're just kind of getting through the reps. There's none of that. Sit down and then I'm going to try to break this fucking bar in half.
Yeah, like you're basically just trying to sit down and trying to stand up. You're not actually lifting.
Yes.
So,
I got a set of 5. I'm getting through the reps. Okay, awesome.
so see, this is interesting because I've been wanting to do another video for my YouTube channel talking about intent. And I'm like, I can coach intent in person, but how do you coach intent online? How do you get people to understand that, listen, it's not just about sitting down and standing up. It's not just about lowering a bar to your chest and pushing it up. Like I tell people, I'm like, act like there's a goddamn 1,000 pounds in that bar and it's going to crush you. So you can't relax. You got to go down. You got to put that bar, every millimeter of movement, you know where that bar's at and you're putting it in that position.
Yeah. It's tough. You can do it. It just takes a little longer, unfortunately. like for me, I try to think when I lift, things that always work for me, like for squat, for example, like on the way down, I'm worried about my hips, like open, reach back. And then when I go to stand up, it's just shoulders. Like my head's got to be in the right position.
Mm-hmm.
But then the only thing I feel or think about on the way up is that pressure on my shoulders and trying to blast them through the bar.
Right.
And just you got to keep telling people faster on the way up. It's pause, fast, pause, fast. But that usually seems to work. Like the thing about being a person, you can get it done in one session, where online it might take a couple of weeks
Right.
till you kind of see that snap in the bar. Or like benching, I'll tell them, when you go to press that bar off your chest, punch the bar. I want you to feel all the pressure in your hands. I don't want you. Don't even think about your pecs or shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
It's just arch, stomach up, 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 and then hands. Punch the bar and spread it. Then that seems to work, but like I said, it takes longer. It's usually a couple weeks before they kind of, and then you'll be able to see it in the video.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that initial pop off the chest will kind of start coming in. But that's like with beginners, when you're in a room with beginners, that's a really good indicator they're starting to pick it up. They kind of sit on the box, and then you'll see that nice little snap.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you can kind of tell things are clicking. And that was kind of like, going back, that was a big aha moment for me. Like, I studied conjugate stuff for like 10 years before going to UB and meeting Paul and all those guys. And then I came in, I got to train with them on a dynamic effort lower, and they've got 6 fucking plates on each side of the bar. And it's like, pause, pause. And then we went, it was the 07 WPO. Paul was lifting, so we got to go back in the weight room. And I'm watching you guys warm up. And it was just like 800 pounds coming down. Bam. And I was like, if I can get a fucking football player to do that, maybe not with 900 pounds, but 5 or possibly 6 on each side of the bar, that dude's gonna be really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So I was like, this has got to help people.
Yeah, that's why with football players, I'm like, okay, you don't have to squat 1,000 pounds as a lineman, but I need you moving 500 or 600 like a rocket ship. It's funny. My first seminar, I went when I decided I wanted to get serious about powerlifting. I did a seminar with Dave, and it was out here in California. And he said, I'm doing dynamic training on Sunday if you guys want to come. And of the 40 or 50 people that were at the seminar, there was like 8 that showed up for the dynamic training. And just like what you said, that one of the biggest things of me going to that training was watching Dave do dynamic. I'm like, holy shit, I have never seen anyone bench that fast in my life. Like, it was unbelievable. And that started me off going, okay, like dynamic means dynamic. Like, I got to move the shit out of this weight. Like, I got to be like crazy, chaotic, violent, but in control kind of speed. And I think that's totally like I'm so sick of seeing dynamic shit on Instagram. And I'm like, dude, that took you 4 seconds, man. That's not dynamic work. That's one of the things. I'm actually super into velocity meters now. I haven't went full on into like velocity training with max effort stuff yet. But kind of just having that meter so people can go like, dude, listen, you're at 0.3. That was slow as fuck. I need you to drop weight and get to like 0.7.
Yeah.
So then it's not so much like I have a device for people to look at and go, okay, that's not fast enough. I got to go fast. But the problem is with that is I try to explain to them. It's like I heard these guys talking about quick draw with guns one time. And it's like, efficient is fast. So it's like, don't try to go faster by just trying to go faster. Try to go faster by having better technique and being more efficient in your movement. Because some people will just be like, they'll just be crazy trying to go faster. And I go, yeah, but you notice you tried to go crazy, you didn't go any faster. Hit your technique right, and you're going to be like, holy shit, why was that so fast? Because you were efficient. Like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, dude. And I used to scoff at the velocity, not the theory, but just having the meters in a training setting. Because like what you said, I thought it would, turn into a shit show and stuff. But looking back, I think it's a good tool for people it's not clicking.
Yeah.
To give them a measurable, I think it's a really good teaching tool, actually.
It just gives them a good weight to start with. So it's like, because everybody goes start with 50%, and I go, well, you have to have something to start with, but let's put 50% on and see where you're at. Because I've seen very athletic people that are fast as hell with a much heavier weight than 50%, and I've seen people that are slow as shit with 30%. So it's like, I would always I gave up that whole percentage thing a long time ago with my clients that I trained in person. I'm like, all right, let's put some weight on the bar and see. And then if you're fast,
yeah, people get way too hung up on the percents.
Mm-hmm. The percents and the bands, that one amazes me too. People are always like, well, how much weight is that band? I go, it's fucking irrelevant. Because if you're 5'10" or you're 6'4", it's going to be different tension. How you hook it up is going to be different tension. Like, there's so many different factors, and you people want to nail, well, how much is that?
That's so the fucking band setup drives me crazy. Like, all of this shit has been done. Like Louis popularized it. Like, all the band setups, and it shouldn't be a mystery. Like, it's been done. Like, you can go look at videos and see how the bands are supposed to be choked and stuff. And then you go watch stuff on, it's all fucking over the place. And I guess I'm just an old head, like, but it's like, guys, the shit's been done for you. Stop trying to do different shit. Like, put your fish scales away, or your fucking suitcase scales that you got on the bands. Just hook it up how it's supposed to be done and go see what's in the chart and do it. Like,
yeah. And especially with dynamic work, it's like, dude, this is where people go, well, I read the science and I did studies and you need this band. I'm like, you know what? Put the weight on there, get the band on it, and fucking go as fast as you fucking can. Like, just do that and you'll be fine.
That what you're doing under the bar is more important than all the other stuff you're doing.
Yeah, I think that goes to my I have that the people talk about the low hanging fruit. I'm like, let's, especially, I was going to kind of talk to you with this one about the kids too, because like, people seem to want to go to the top of the tree right off the bat, and like with the bands, they're like, oh, I need this exact weight percentage on this band, and it's like, dude, your squat technique looks like shit. Like, why are you worried about your band tension? And right now, I'm really getting more and more into the mental side of things. Like, I think one of the most common things I've seen in top strength athletes is they believe in themselves. And then I see a lot of people that have no belief in themselves. They'll act like they do, but they don't really do. And I mean, even if I have a girl comes in and goes, I want to lose 20 pounds. Like, if she doesn't believe she can lose 20 pounds or doesn't believe she's worth losing 20 pounds, I don't care what I do. It's probably not going to happen. We might make some progress.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I think when I don't actually have any groups of young kids, but I have young kids. And like, one of my main things is like, man, I want to build confidence in them. And I want to get them to believe in themselves. And I wonder if that's not easier to do in a group setting than an individual setting, maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, maybe. I mean, because I think they'll tend to compete a little bit.
Yeah, and push themselves a little more.
Yeah, and if they see, oh, Joey's doing 2 plates, I can do that. Fuck Joey.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little bit of that. So yeah, I think that's part of it. But yeah, the confidence thing, to me, that's the best thing weights can give you. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't the best football player, but I worked to the point where I convinced myself I'll go fucking block Ray Lewis on Saturday if I have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I probably would not have ended well. Now I realize that. But at the time, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I put the work in, like, fucking let's go. And that's the biggest thing it'll give kids. 100%.
Well, I definitely think that, like, because I never saw myself as having great genetics. Like, I was never an outstanding sport athlete. And the worst part is my dad's a great athlete and my brother's a really good athlete. And so, like, growing up, when my dad tried to teach me how to do stuff, he would get so frustrated with me. Because he's like the guy who would go grab a golf club and just wham, hit the shit out of it. And like, I never could ever do that. So like once I found powerlifting, and I'm like, dude, I like this sport is kind of cool because it takes, to me, to some extent, it takes some of the genetic advantage out of it. Like if I work really hard and I work smarter, I can beat a guy that has great genetics who takes advantage of his genetics and it doesn't learn that much.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's something where kids can learn, hey, if I'm willing to work hard and be persistent and I don't give up, I can do this. I can be successful.
Yeah, 100%. That's you gotta. I've kind of shifted this in my mind over the past few years, like because like when I was competing, like I would constantly shit on myself because it would motivate me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you squatted 1,000, okay, good, but you should be doing 1,100. 1,000 wasn't that hard. You know what I mean? So I constantly shit on myself. Where I think newer people coming in, like you have to show them the little small victories
Yes.
to kind of reinforce, hey, you're making some progress. This is going to help you. You know, Michael Fahey and Bird and Jared Bidney. These guys are all like conjugate stuff, and they've been doing cool stuff with like potentiation. So they're constantly testing their kids' jumps, and they'll have them go march on a belt squat or weighted pin or whatever for 2 minutes, and then go jump again, and the jump goes up 4 inches or whatever, just because of the nervous system stuff. So I did that with my son like a year ago or whatever. Like I said, hey, go jump on the rim, and then we're going to try something, and then he went and jumped a few more inches, and it worked. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
years ago, I never would have done that because I would have been it's like a placebo thing, or like, yeah, you get that in training, but can you draw from that on the field?
Yeah.
But these guys build it into their training all the time.
Time out. I gotta
So
go
the
march
kids are
on
like,
I gotta go march on the belt squat for a second.
hold on, coach. But I think like working with these kids, if you can do shit like that, they're in after like one session.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta, I don't know. People are different. I think you and I are probably old school, and
We're definitely we're definitely different than a lot of people. I'll say that for sure. I mean, it was kind of like when you go. Yeah, people are different. I think about like because when I had my team, we trained at Flex Gym, and which became American Iron here in town. And at one point, the owner came up to me and he goes, "Chad, man, I don't ever see your team really getting that big." And I go, "Why the hell not, dude? We're the baddest dudes in this gym." And he goes, "Yeah, but you guys scare people." I'm like, "What do you mean we scare people?" He goes, "Well, you're always yelling at each other and telling each other you can do better and you need to do this better and you need to do that better." And he's like, I think that scares people. I go, "What do you mean? Like, we're the tightest group of people in this gym. We actually give a shit about each other. We're not telling you it looks good when it looks like shit." But he was right.
Yeah.
My team never got that big because like people were scared of us. And they wanted
but
they
you know
wanted
what?
rah bullshit where we're like, "No, I expect you to be better."
But that whole mentality is like, I could go on and on, but like what that guy said to you is why our country is a fucking mess right now. Like I go to the grocery store, and I'm stealing this from another podcaster. This is where I got the idea. Go to the grocery store, and how many able-bodied men do you see walking around? Probably less than 50%. You know what I mean? So that whole attitude of that guy, like, yeah, like we don't need a lot of people. We're here to do something.
Yeah.
We're here to get better. Like if you're not down with that, fine, go do whatever you want,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's that,
Yeah, I think and it was the funny thing is that my team, like, we were hard on each other, but it was never negative to us. To us, that was positive. Like, if you told me good job and it looked like shit, you're harming me. You're not helping me. But I think
real friends will tell you the truth.
yes, it's the same thing. I use a description of if I had spinach in my teeth and I had my buddy with me and he let me go talk to some hot girl with shit in my teeth, I'm going to be fucking pissed.
why did you tell me my breath smelled like shit?
So it's
Yeah,
it's funny,
it
like
can get frustrating.
with when I teach young people, it's like, man, I want to teach them to be tougher. I want to teach them to go, hey, it's okay to be hard on yourself. It's okay to do this, and then you're successful in the end, and that's what's important. Is
Yeah,
the long
but
term.
it's I know I think it's hard for people to see, for most people to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I've said like the best coaches I ever had were the tough ones.
I did.
But
I interviewed Matt Wenning a couple episodes back, and we were actually, he brought up that he was at, I think he was stuck at a 500-pound bench for like 2 years. And I have the same story. Almost every top person I've talked to, there was a lift that just got stuck. But we're the kind of people that we are, that we persist. We're like, no, I know I'm going to get better. I know I'm going to beat this point. And I don't care if I'm
yeah,
stuck. I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep thinking about it. I'm going to keep figuring out where a lot of people would have quit way earlier in that and would have
I
never become
agree.
great.
I agree. And like the tough thing that I'm trying to figure out is how to convey that message to somebody that's not down with that. You know what I mean? Can you
Yeah.
like, is that a teachable thing, or is it just something that's in people?
Dude, we're on a get one on a good subject now, because I think, like, with the mentality, I do wonder how much of a mentality can you teach people? Part of me says no, you can train it just like you train your muscles. It's your brain. It is a physical thing. It can be trained. But with some people, it challenges me that if I can get them to get past, and just toughen up, man. Like, it's toughen up and push. Like, have faith in yourself to do that. I mean, you've probably
Yeah, I don't,
seen coming up. You've probably seen, because I saw this. I'd be coming up, and when I was in like the middle level, say, of powerlifting, and I would see these guys that had more genetic potential than me. And I'm like, dude, these guys they're strong as shit, man, but I'm outlifting them. And it was just like, well, I think it got to that point where it's like mentally they're tapped out. So even if their bodies could do more, mentally they're done. They don't think they can do more, so they're not going to do more. Where I was never like, there was never a weight that I went, oh, that's it. Like, every weight I did, I went, okay, now what's next? Like, where am I going now?
yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I always like, he brought up like my background. Like I was always kind of known as like a hard worker and stuff, because I always lifted hard and trained hard in high school. Same thing in college. I probably was top 5% of hard workers on the team or whatever. And I was like, recently I've been thinking, was I actually that hard of a worker, or was that just what I enjoyed? You know what I mean? Because like I know there's different things now. Like I'm trying to be more disciplined on. Like this fucking sucks. You know what I mean? Like it's a struggle to get this whatever I got to get done. And I'm like, well, let's go, Mr. fucking hard worker. Were you just doing the shit that you like and you're not really a hard worker now? So I like battle with that. Like some of the younger kids you work with and stuff, it's like, well, I did it, so they should be able to do it. And then I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
did I really do it? Or is this kid going to be able to grasp the concept of, yeah, you just got to keep fucking doing it and it'll happen. I don't know. I'm not sure where the answer lies.
No, but that's an interesting point. Because if you love it, it's a whole lot easier to do.
Yeah.
Like, I always talk about how the best thing I ever did for my strength was not training as much. And that also happened to be the hardest thing for me to ever do. Like, it fucking sucked. Whenever I would add
Yeah.
days into my program, I would literally, like, when it first started, when I went from 8 to 10 days, like, I thought about it for 3 months. Because I couldn't get myself to go, no, I'm going to be training less. Fuck that. But that was the hardest thing I had to do. And it's kind of interesting too. Like, even with football, I hated practice because my coach would rarely let us like full on hit each other. But I loved it. I
Oh
loved
yeah.
the games. So practice was
Yeah.
like, nah, okay, I got to go practice. But I did it so I could be good in the game. But I never really enjoyed it. So it was more of a struggle. For me, I've always enjoyed lifting. The first fucking time I lifted, it was fun. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
I can't, how tough am I if I go beat the crap out of myself in the gym every day? If I love doing it, does that really make me all that tough?
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. And that's where I fucked up. Like, I got to a point where I should have done less. And I don't know if I didn't have someone explain that to me, or it never clicked in my brain, but I didn't. I just kept fucking go until the wheels fell off. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To get me to do less, like, I don't know. I don't know if anybody could have convinced me otherwise. And it's funny too, like you said, with the practice and games, your payoff was the games.
Yeah.
So I think, like, when we're teaching people, we got to try to like, what's the payoff going to be that's going to get them to
Mm-hmm.
stick with this. Like my son right now, he's 13, and he likes basketball. Doesn't love it. So I signed him up for this. It's called an academy, and you pay a price per month, and you can go 4 times a week. And the first night that we went, it was all defense. So they didn't even touch a ball for like an hour. They were just running defensive slides. And we got in the car, and he's like, "Dad, this isn't my style of basketball." And I wanted to say, "Dude, you're 13. You don't have a fucking style of basketball." But I was like, "Well, it was all defense tonight, dude. Let's give it a chance, and we'll go for a couple weeks and see how it goes." And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "And we're just gonna go. Let's go 2 nights a week for now." You know what I mean? I'm trying not to shove it down his throat, but it was funny. Like, he went for 2 weeks, and the next game that he played, I could see a complete difference in, like, the way he was playing and his confidence and stuff. So, like, my battle right now is like, how do I get him to see this payoff? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like right now, his practices, or that academy, is like your practices. He's like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
go. I kind of,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sell him, like, because he has the genetics. He could be my one brother-in-law is like 6'7".
Mm-hmm.
Like, the other side of the family is all real tall and stuff. So he has like a good genetic profile to play basketball or whatever. So I'm trying to, like, ease him along and not crush him with it, but at the same time, like, trying to use my sales skills, I guess. It's, what's your fucking payoff, dude? Like, what's gonna make you click?
No, that's a good point with athletes. But how do you get them to see that? And until they do, like even with my football players, once they go back and they hit people even harder, when they come back to the gym, they're definitely more like, oh shit, like this is going to make me be better at what I do love to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then
I
again, like it's hard for me to understand because I love lifting. Like it's
Yeah,
harder for me to back myself off, even like right now, because right now my mental health and my health is my main thing. So like my strength goals are like be as strong as you can while being healthy. So that means if my sleep gets fucked or I'm feeling depression, I got to kind of back off of lifting heavy. And that's still hard for me to, even though I know it's going to work and I know it's good for me, it's still hard for me not to go beat the crap out of myself in the gym because I love doing it. So I have to kind of
yeah,
remind myself that not everybody loves doing this as much as you do, Chad.
yeah. It's tough. It's like, why won't you listen to me?
Yeah, just shut up and do it. I'm telling you. Yeah, coaching's an
Have you?
interesting gig for me because like when I was lifting, I didn't really want to train people. I mean, I trained all my team guys and I always helped people and I always did seminars, but I didn't want to interrupt like my goals. And now training people, it's kind of a different it's a different thing and I sometimes I feel like my grandfather. Because I'm like, dude, when I in my age, dude, you went to the gym and you worked your ass off and you had fun and you loved it. And I'm just like, why don't you people understand what I'm saying? Go faster, god damn it. It's just and then
Yep.
the funny part is, like I talk about my client Mark all the time. Mark's 75, he's a contractor. Like this son of a bitch he'll tease me. Like we tease back and forth bad. But like if I'm like, yeah, just shut up and do it. He's like, all right. I'm like, you whine less than anyone I know, and you're my oldest client.
You posted some of his stuff, right?
Yeah, I think I have.
Yeah, I've seen him. That's funny.
But it's funny that he's
But
like, he's old
those are the
school.
ones that keep you coming back.
Yeah. He's like
You
old school.
know,
He goes, I
those,
need to get stronger, so you tell me what to do and I'll do it.
yeah, yeah. It's too bad they're all not like that,
I
right?
know. I wish.
We're talking about your training a little bit. Have you found a good way to monitor, like when you need, like, let's say you don't feel like training or whatever? You found a good way to distinguish between, oh, I just don't feel like doing this, or oh, I really need to back things off right now. Have you developed any kind of like system for that?
I have tried tons of different goddamn things, and I cannot find a definite yes or no.
Yeah.
I'm playing with HRV a little more right now. Can't really, I mean, there's days where, I mean, and I know it's more of you can't look every day. You got to kind of look at in a longer term. But I haven't seen anything with that. I've tried resting heart rates. I've tried grip strength. Um, just all these different things, and it's still I can't find a consistent yes or no. Like, and I would love to be able to like draw blood and go, yeah, don't train till this says this again.
All right.
I have not found anything that's definite that actually works for me. So I try to lean more to like I try to listen to my body more, which is still hard because I mean we all have egos, and if our ego wants to lift, it's going to try to convince us, no, you need to suck it up today. You're just being a bitch. You know, like I
Yeah.
mean that honestly is. I think if somebody could tap into a definite, you're overtraining or you're not, or you should lift heavy today or not, that'd be like $1 billion idea.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Have you tried? You have the Whoop strap, don't you?
I have the Aura ring.
Does that tell you your recovery?
Yes.
Like, oh, you're recovered today. Have you found that to be helpful or not so much?
No, because I'm always like literally every day. It's like, yeah, you need more rest, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I sleep like shit.
Okay.
So that could be the problem with me is that my sleep is so screwed. I'm just screwed no matter what. It's
I was
funny
gonna
because
tell you, yeah,
I
you're never
was
ready.
watching an old video of Tom Platz. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I grew up reading all this stuff and watching all this stuff. And even I tell this story because I loved Mike Mentzer HIIT training when I was a kid. But for me, HIIT training when I was a kid meant you go balls to the wall every day, all the time. Everything is like squat till you can't physically walk up the stairs. That's good, perfect. And I go back and read it now, and I'm like, Chad, you totally missed the whole recovery portion of this training. Like you just completely, utterly, blindly looked past and saw only what you wanted to see. So I started going back and watching all these old videos of these bodybuilders and stuff that I looked up to when I started. And I was watching a video of Tom Platz. And first of all, he goes, I only squatted like twice a month. And I was like, really? Because I don't remember ever hearing that when I was a kid, but I probably ignored it if I did hear it. And he was like, yeah, those things, just those heavy training sessions, those videos you watch, dude, that blew me up. Like, there's no way. And I watched another one where he didn't really have a set training program. He knew what he wanted to do, but he said, yeah, if I got up and I didn't feel like lifting, then I didn't lift. I'd like go to Weeder's house and hang out or something. He's like, I lifted when I felt like lifting. And I thought, wow, that's absolutely fascinating to me.
Wow. That's funny.
One of the things that actually helped me to start backing off was I remember having conversations with like Ed Cohn and Steve Goggins, and we would be talking, and they're like, yeah, man, if I was at the gym and like my back felt funny or something, I would just stop. I mean, what do you mean you'd stop? You'd stop and take a 10-minute break? What do you mean? Like you came back in the afternoon? Like, I don't understand. What do you mean you just stopped? I don't get this. And they're like, yeah, something was wrong. My body was telling me that something's not right and I probably shouldn't lift today. I'm like, so you made it up the next day? They're like, no. Like, you missed it. It's done. Whatever. And I'm like, how? I can't, my brain couldn't fathom that at that time. And it was like I kept getting told stories like that from some of the pro strongmen that I knew, some of the Highland game guys. And eventually it hit my thick skull enough that I went, Chad, you need to start thinking about this. Like, there's a reason you keep hearing these stories from guys that are the best in the world.
So that's one thing I didn't learn from Paul and should have. You know, like he knew when to back off or take it easy a little bit in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would see him do it, and I was in my brain, I was just like, oh well, he's great. He doesn't have to train as hard all the time. Well, no, that's part of the reason he was as strong as he was and why, you know, he was so injury free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I started falling apart, it was because I was doing dumb shit in the off season that I didn't need to do. I would see some dude on the internet doing something, and then or compete with some of our throwers. I would train with them once in a while, and in my brain, I'm like, "Fuck this dude! I can do more than that."
Mm-hmm.
Yep, pop, pop, pop.
Mm-hmm.
There goes something. You know, it was stupid. The answer was right there in front of me. I couldn't see it.
So see that's interesting too, because when I started backing off, Mark Bartley was actually, I didn't know it at the time, but we talked about it afterwards. Mark Bartley and his team were running into the same problem I was having, which was like every 3 weeks, everybody on the team went to shit. And like this happened months and months and months in a row. And I went, wait a minute, like we got to change this. Why does everybody go to shit? And then we have a crap couple weeks, then we get back to it. Well, Mark decided he's going to start deloading every 4th week. And in my brain, I went, but I don't want to deload every 4th week. That means I got to take a week off once a month. That's going to suck. Yeah. So I thought, well, wait a minute. What if I just spread it out? Then I'm more consistent. And in my brain, I don't think there was really any difference between either way, because we both kept getting stronger and we both had great results. I think it was just which settled better in each one of our brains. Like, to me, being more consistent, just adding time off in between my cycle made more sense. For him, it made more sense just to go, well, this happens every 4th week, so we need to rest that week. And I think a lot of people, when they're looking at programs and stuff, they don't want to look at it like that and go, listen, there is no perfect program. If there was a perfect program, there would be one program. Like, every program out there, no matter how shitty you think it is, worked for somebody.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you remember Gary Frank, but Gary Frank took the total from like 25 to like 28 or something. Yeah. Never really got along great with him, but I did have some of his teammates that I really liked. And like his training to me made no sense whatsoever. It was like the most simplistic, insane, like, how does that work? Well, it worked for him. So yeah. I can't say that it's a bad program. I can't say that it's wrong. I can say I don't understand it. I don't necessarily like it. I can say I think my program's better for this, this, and this. But it worked. So I think people get too caught up in doing the program, and it's like, what you need to do is you need to bend the program more for you. You know, and even like, I'm not a fan of linear periodization. I ran it when I first started powerlifting, and there's a lot of reasons I don't like it. One of them is like, well, what happens if you get sick? What happens if 1 week doesn't work right? And so I was never a fan of it. But Ed Cohn's the GOAT, and Ed Cohn ran linear periodization. So we were having lunch one time, and I got to go, hey, so you love linear periodization? Like, I got to ask him questions. What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? And he always had an answer. So I'm like, maybe I don't like linear periodization because I didn't run it right. Maybe I was too uptight
Yeah.
about stuff where he seems to be way more relaxed about it. Maybe I was focusing on parts of it that I shouldn't have been focusing on. And that kind of led me down the path of like, wait a minute, like just it's not the program, it's how you run it. And even when I first started running conjugate, I was doing the basic West Side templates. And so when we were running into problems and issues, I didn't throw it away. I went, who can I call and talk to? So I'd call Dave up. I would talk to Louie and go, hey, here's what I'm running into. It wasn't the program, it was me not operating it right or not bending it to what I needed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you did the smart thing and reach out and talk to those people, and that like the internet's great to get information. But I think a lot of like, and I did this too. Like you see all the West Side stuff, and you're following the program or whatever, but all you see is the highlights,
Mm-hmm.
and all you see is guys grinding and killing themselves, and hear about Chuck Vogelpohl and this and that. So that's what you think you have to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take a deeper look into the program, like you run Louis' waves the way he does, it builds in a deload. Like you ramp up
Mm-hmm.
3, drop, ramp up 3, drop. So those things can be missed, and you think you got to go balls to the wall all the time. Like I remember, who was it? Panora and Luke Edwards were getting ready for meets, and at the end of all their dynamic days, they would work up after their sets.
Mm-hmm.
So for like a period of a year, I thought that's what we had to do, and we were beating the living shit out of ourselves. We got through a few months and we're like, what the fuck is going on? And we're like, maybe we shouldn't be working up every week, because we saw 4 weeks of training where they were doing that. So we thought that's what it was. It's the internet's great for information, but it's like fire. It's a great tool
Yeah.
to burn your ass if you're not careful.
Well, even once I got to meet more of the West Side guys and you start hearing the stories and how it runs and stuff, it's like I've never once read a story about guys that would go in and do their max effort and they're like, dude, I'm pooped, I'm done, I'm leaving. But you hear stories that everybody does what Louis says and all this stuff, and it's like, well, that's not even true, man. Like, and then half the
Yeah.
top guys, Louis told them what to do, and then they did whatever the hell they wanted anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, look at Hoff. You know what I mean? You hear stories now where he was doing kind of different stuff, and he's doing what he's doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think rest and recovery is maybe the missing piece we were not thinking about as much as we should have over the years.
The more I look at it, and now with my this is a tough one too, training people, because I have that well, let's get one more weekend, let's push it one more, and I have to control myself, even with because I want my clients to do the best they can do. Like I'm like tied into it.
Right.
They're like fucking family to me. So it's just like on my teammates. Like I want to push them as hard as I can push them, but the more and more I do it, and the more I experiment, the more and more I go, you know what? If there's a question, you're almost always better backing off. Because if you back off, you're a little undertrained. If you go over the edge, you could set yourself back months and possibly injuries. And that's still a hard lesson for me to accept.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. But it's funny, like thinking to like training the athletes and stuff. I think they tend to like, because like a lot of them aren't super into training like we are.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of self-regulate on their own.
Yes.
Like okay, we're supposed to do these things today. They're probably going to pick and choose what they're actually going to do. You know what I mean? So they'll build self deloads in themselves, or like, like when we were coaching, we would coach our asses off on the main lifts, and then like most of our kids were pretty good, and they could go off and do their accessory stuff. Like we would still coach them and help them through, but we weren't on their ass. So it was like they would push on those main things and then go to the accessories. They were probably self-governing quite a bit. Like if they're tired, they're probably going to skip a couple sets of GHR or what it is, and probably get the regulation in like that. So I think like in groups, unless you have a group that's just constantly on it, you might not need to back them off as much.
Right. That's you just gave me a very interesting thought. So with an athlete, even going back to when I was throwing, I kind of knew more like I need to feel good on that day and I need to be explosive. I wonder if athletes tend to listen to their bodies better than lifters. Where as a lifter, we're like, yeah, I'm supposed to be sore. I'm supposed to be beat up. Like, if I'm not beat up, I'm not training hard enough. I wonder if that's like a mentality thing.
I think you're right. I think
We're an athlete. If he's
probably
beat up
are.
and sore, he knows he's not going to step on the field and run as fast as he can.
Yes.
So he's more apt to
Yeah,
go,
you're
well, wait a
right.
minute, I don't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think NFL guys kind of have that rap of maybe not being the hardest, not pushing real hard in the weight
Mm-hmm.
room. I think a lot of people that aren't in that setting say, "Oh, those guys don't work that hard in the weight room." Yes, because they fucking just put themselves through a car accident.
Yeah.
They know they shouldn't have 600 pounds on their back, but to me is a great argument for I don't need to lift these guys heavy. I can do dynamic work with them and they're going to get great benefit and feel fresh. And, we'll push blood around with smaller exercises.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's the key. You know what I mean? And you're still helping those guys out. But I think you're right. I think they're not as dumb as we are and not as dumb as we think they are. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think back to my football players now. Like my football players actually probably do give me better feedback on how they're feeling and stuff than the people that just lift. And especially my
Yeah.
power lifters.
Yeah, because they have that I gotta freaking grind all the time mentality.
So I wonder if now you got my brain going now. Like I have my power lifters now. I think one of the things that I always look back at my career to see what I could have done better. I mean, I'm not one of those guys. It's done. It's over. Whatever. I had fun. It was great. I don't care. But I do like to look back and go, what could I have done better? Like, because as a coach, I want to keep learning and keep advancing and keep trying new things. So now I try to have my power lifters, like I'll make them do hill sprints. We'll do a lot of sled work. I even made them start riding BMX bikes with me. And they actually all love that. So I wonder if I did, as doing more of that, that could help them to regulate. Because lifting heavy and being sore and then going and sprinting and being sore is almost a totally different feeling.
Yeah.
And if your sprints are sucking and they're hurting really bad, then we probably need a little more time off. I'm going to have to play around with that.
I think you're right.
I also had the idea too. I've had, cause I got through I'm really in pretty good shape. Like I'm 52 or will be 52. My knees are good. My hips are good. I have a low back issue. I'm healing, but that was more from doing granite. My shoulders are good. I mean, I look at Dave and I'm like, Dave, what the fuck, man? Like, you are beat to shit, dude.
Yeah.
And so I got through my lifting career, but I always focused a lot on technique. And then I probably should have still had more recovery than I had because of my sleep and stuff. But I mean, I was actually doing less than all the guys I competed against. And I came through it with, torn muscles are my worst injuries. And right now, I could do whatever I want. So I kind of had the idea, and because I look at my guys who hate stretching and hate mobility work, and I'm like, man, I should make them throw a baseball. Like I should be like, it's recovery day. You got to go play catch for 20 minutes, just to get them to start moving and move their joints.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's looking back, I didn't do enough of that. Because there was a point where if I felt like I was getting out of shape or whatever, I could just push my pace lifting more and get it back pretty easy. But then I think I went past the tipping where I should have gone for walks. I should have went and rode a bike or, and it would have been, it's such an easy thing to do. And looking back and realizing now how much of a difference it can make is, it's too bad I didn't, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's doing those extra little things can help a ton.
Now, going back to what we were just talking about, I go for a lot of walks nowadays. And a couple weeks ago, I noticed I was kind of starting to push my body again. And I noticed, I was like, man, it just dawned on me. I was breathing heavy on my walks, like heavier than normal.
Yeah.
And that's probably because I was pushing it in the gym and my body was not recovering. So
Right.
all that stuff's going to keep you healthier and in better shape, but maybe that's also a way to help auto regulate yourself a little more too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think we see that in sports a lot. The coach is like, "Oh, these guys are out of shape." And it's like, "No, dude, they're fucking over. We're doing too much right now."
Mm-hmm.
We used to get that in high school. Like we would go right from football to basketball, and the basketball coach at the time was cross country coach, or his kids ran cross country, so they're in very good shape. So like in his mind, the key to being a good basketball player was being in super good shape. So like first week of basketball practice, we're doing these 20-minute suicide sprints and stuff. And me and my buddy just came off of football, and we're in the back of the pack. He's like, "You guys, I don't know what you're doing in football. You guys aren't in shape." He's like, "No, dude, I'm fucking smoked right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm, you know, I knew I was in shape, but it was just like I'm freaking I'm shot. I don't have any, like I need some rest." But I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many signs to overtraining that we don't pay attention to. But if we moved more,
Yeah,
we might
right.
notice those things more, and be able to auto regulate ourselves. It's funny because
100%. Yeah, walking shouldn't be this hard.
yeah, and I'll notice too. Now that I'm thinking about it, like my anterior tibialis will get fucking if I'm lifting a shit ton and lifting hit, my anterior tibialis will get so pumped up walking that I like got to take a break and
Yeah.
shake my foot out. But then when I'm not killing myself in the gym, I can go for the same walks just fine.
Yeah,
That's fucking interesting,
that's it.
man.
That's interesting.
Now that I'm
That's
thinking
weird.
about that, that's really interesting. I'm gonna have to start paying more attention to that.
Tib anterior, the old shin splints.
Yeah, but it'll come
We
and
used to
go
like
depending
our
on how heavy I'm training.
oh, that's really weird. I'm just thinking back. We used to have track kids come back, and they'd come back in the spring, and everybody have shin splints. And I always thought it was because they didn't do what they were supposed to over break, and they're now exposed to all this running where they got to repeatedly pull their foot up, and it was just getting, it was too much work. So now looking back, I wonder if there's a tie in there where that wasn't actually what was going on.
It could be depending on. I mean, if they were running hard before that,
Right. And then
that's
you add more
interesting.
on. I don't know. There you
So
go. There's your retirement plan, the Chad Aches tib anterior monitoring system.
yeah, and even like I mean, thinking I have this idea, and when I'm working on moving and building a barn dominium and expanding my gym, and
Nice.
hopefully I want to build some tiny homes so people can come in for seminars and just do the whole thing right there. But I have an idea
When
for
I
a
have the same dream.
really
We're right
that's
there, dude.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be so great. But I have a dream when I make that happen, I'm going to build a wall so you can play like handball. And I think that would
Okay.
be like to make my guys go, no, you got to throw right handed for 10 minutes and you got to throw left hand for 10 minutes. And I'm wondering, like, shoulder and joint wise, if they do start over training, I would think that would be much more noticeable in like how hard they could throw, or if they start having pain throwing a racquetball, then it's like, dude, we're probably overdoing it. And we need to kind of back off of
Yeah.
your lifting.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think just moving more would probably, because I don't know, when I got, you may have been like me, that like it was almost like the stronger I got, the more I went, well, I need to just lift and then I need to be recovering. So I did less and
Yes.
less and less. But my recovery still seemed to get harder and harder, and I just thought it because I was getting stronger. Maybe it's because I was just getting out of shape because I didn't do shit but lift and try to recover.
I think you're 100% right. Yeah, because you're tired from the gym and you're like, oh, I need to lay around and sleep more, and
Yeah,
probably should have gone for a walk.
yeah. I'm going to the grocery store Friday. I got a meet coming up, so I'm not doing shit all weekend. Sit
Yep.
and lay down and watch TV all fucking weekend and eat.
Yes, sir. Extra Pringles this weekend. I'm gonna get some salt back in me.
Oh, the good old days. So where do you
Oh,
stand
that's
on
funny.
Olympic lifts for athletes?
Fuck that bullshit.
I kind of knew
Why? I
I
mean,
kind of knew that was going to be the answer. That's one. If I actually had one of my football players, I go, listen, ask your coach. I go, if you deadlift like 500 pounds, like bet him if you can deadlift 500 pounds, you don't have to do Olympic lifts no more. Because I would most of them. I'll go. You tell your coach who you're training with in the off season. And so if they didn't know me, they would look me up and they're like, yeah, you just go do your thing with Chad. And I had one of them where he deadlifted enough that he didn't have to do Olympic lifts anymore.
nice. It makes no sense. Like there's so much. Call me lazy, but I like to be efficient. To me, there's so much more efficient ways to skin the cat. I used to tell my kids, like, sometimes they'd ask me, like, why don't we do Olympic lifts? And I would say, if I tell you to go cut down a tree, are you going to use a chainsaw or a steak knife? And they would say chainsaw. I say, well, we're using a fucking chainsaw here, okay? And then I would explain to them after, and stuff. But I think again we can thank Husker Power for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Nebraska blew up and they were doing Olympic lifts, and here we go. Everybody's got to do Olympic lifts, and I don't think that's phased out yet.
Yeah, I'm totally against. I go, most countries that win the Olympics and Olympic lifts start their kids training the Olympic lifts when they're little because the movements are so fucking complicated and it's so hard to do correctly. You're a football player. I don't need to spend all that time doing that. There's way other like you said, there's way other lifts that are going to give us way better return. And I don't know why they're stuck on Olympic lifts. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. A little case study. We had one coach that basically demanded that we do them in the weight room. So I was like, okay, we're going to run them this spring. And it, in my mind, being the spiteful asshole that I am, I'm like, I'm going to coach the ever loving shit out of your kids, and they're going to look pretty decent at these Olympic lifts. And we're going to see the test results after this spring. The kids got pretty good at the Olympic lifts, and their results that spring were not as good as when we weren't doing the Olympic lifts. And we had more kids complaining about my back hurts, my shoulders hurt, this is bothering my elbow, all this,
Yeah.
So we saw all the other problems, and the testing wasn't as good. And I gave the result, and I didn't say anything to the coach. You know what I mean? I showed him the results, and here's what happened last time, and it doesn't matter. That's what they did in college, so that's what we got to do. And it's just like, okay,
That's so
whatever.
crazy. So crazy.
It just doesn't make sense.
So what if you look back over your lifting career? What are the biggest things you would change? What would you have done different, I should say, to have gotten stronger?
I would have scaled the training back when I got to a certain strength level. Like I got to a certain point, just going like crazy and training like crazy, and I should have realized that, okay, I'm here now. I need to learn when to chill out a little bit, because I don't need as much stimulus as I did
Right.
in the past. And like I said, trying to be strong when I didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing. And probably maybe give myself a little credit along the way too. Because like I said, like I was always shit talk myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you did this. Well, that ain't shit. You should be doing this. the world record is this. Maybe I wasn't totally delusional. Like I wasn't planning on setting world records, but I thought 2,600 was within my reach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I remember the one year I totaled 23. I squatted 9, bench 7, pulled 7. And they weren't terribly hard, the actual lifts. So right then, like I saw my lift, and I was like, I could easily put 300 more pounds on my total. You know what I mean? Those lifts weren't that hard. I should be able to go 1,008 pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish somebody would have explained to me, be patient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to jump to 2,600 in your next meet, in which I obviously found out. So that would probably be what I would change the most. Just learning when to chill the fuck out.
I think that's those are similar to what I would answer that question. Because I think like with my teammates used to give me shit because like even when I would break a world record, I would celebrate for like 5 seconds, and then I'm like, all right, that's great, but what's next? Like I never, and they're like, dude, you could enjoy it over the weekend, and I'm like, no, what did I do? I think when I broke the WPO bench world record, within 5 seconds, I was asking my training partner, were my elbows tucked? Did I have my back tight? I'm like, what do I need to fix now? Because what's next? Like I didn't take any time to actually enjoy the record. I mean, I enjoyed the whole thing. It was a blast. I have great memories. I love telling stories. I love getting together with my teammates that were there. But I didn't really take the time to enjoy anything. And I think that probably would have made me better in the long run if I would have.
Yep,
And
I agree 100%.
definitely backing off. I think that auto-regulate. I try to, even with my young people now, I'm like, dude, right now we can beat the crap out of you. But I want to get it in your head that at some point you're going to need to start auto-regulating. And at some point, you're going to get so strong that you need more recovery. Even to the point that I explained to them, I go, okay, so your muscles are going to get bigger and stronger, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, your tendons are going to get thicker, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, your ligaments are going to get thicker. Yeah. I go, is your pituitary going to get any bigger? Are your kidneys going to get any bigger? Are your lungs, everything's getting bigger, so it's exhausting the system even more. But the system didn't get any bigger. Right. So you're asking all of your organs and insides to now recover a bigger, stronger body that takes more, but they didn't grow any bigger. So there's like a limit to your recovery. So the bigger you get, the stronger you get, the more time you need off. And then I'll even go down to the point of, so there's a lot of things in the world that make no sense. There's assholes that get rich. There's horrible people that have great lives. But in this instance, you trained your ass off. You got strong as hell. Didn't you earn not having to train as much to keep getting stronger? Didn't you earn time to now do some of those things that you gave up when you were getting bigger and getting stronger? I go, this actually is one thing in the world that kind of makes sense. You worked hard and you got stronger. Now you don't have to work as hard to keep getting stronger. And it just,
dude, that's a great point. Holy shit.
Yeah, and I just I'm like trying to sink it in their head to begin with, because I think there is a point when you're young, you need to bust your ass. You need to go for it. You got to learn how to strain. You got to learn how to push your body. I mean, I truly believe that there's a point of overtraining that's good for you. You just can't take it too far. And there's going to be a point where you don't need to do it at all anymore. Like, in our prime, if we would have taken more time off, we still knew how to push. We still knew how to strain. Like, we didn't have to practice those things anymore at that point.
Nope.
Hell, I can do it now easy as shit, and I'm nowhere near as strong as I was.
It's funny. Like the biggest strength increase I saw was kind of going into my meet where I squatted 1,000, and it was I got a hold of Donnie Thompson's squat program.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and it was kind of new to me, so I wasn't doing like true max effort. I was kind of undershooting each week and just kind of seeing where I was at, and then slowly build on that, and then did that like 3 or 4 times through. I think it was a 12. I can't remember how long it was, but I kind of ran it a few times, and I was undershooting for quite a while, and then come meet time, it was like boom, and I didn't learn from that. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
that I should have recognized, hey, I've been undershooting what I should be lifting most of the time. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling saucy, we cranked it up and did some crazy shit. But most of the work was around that 80%, hitting some doubles. And we did this with the athletes too. We kind of put that in place. We modified it a little bit, and their jumps and everything just took off. So I had the answer there. I just fucking didn't want to listen.
We're so similar. Um, I thought about this. I may have told this story before, but when I was a kid in high school, I trained my ass off. Like I didn't miss. If I missed, I was deathly sick, and then I would do two as soon as I felt better. Like, but every now and then, my dad would force me to go on vacations. And it's funny
Yeah.
because we used to get in these huge arguments when I was a kid. My dad's like, "You're doing too much. Like, you need to take a break." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I got to stay consistent. I got to train hard. I got to be dedicated." And he's like, "Yeah, but there's overdoing that. You're over." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." But every now and then, he would force us to go take a vacation or something. So I would have like 4 or 5 days. And I look back now, and like by the end of that vacation, I'm like, man, I feel good, man. Like my muscles feel full and I have energy and I feel good, man. And I'd go to the gym, and like my first sessions back, it would kill it. I'd be way stronger. I'd be able to go longer. And in my brain would go, good, it's finally working. Let's kick it back up. And I'm like, what a dumbass. I was a dumbass. Like I take time off and I get stronger, but I'm too dumb to figure that, listen, maybe you are doing too much. Maybe if you gave yourself more time off, you would get stronger.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, or even going into a meet like your last week, you're really not doing shit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go feel like Superman. Maybe you you fucking put two and two together and do that a little more often. Nah.
It's so funny.
Shit.
And but the funny thing is too, the mental side of it. I had one of my training partners who, when I would make him deloader stuff, he would always come back. Got to knock the rust off today. Today's going to suck. And I'm like, dude, it's going to suck because you already said it is. Like, you should feel good and feel better. But he was so convinced that time off was bad for him. And even when I started on a regular 7-day cycle of the West Side normal conjugate, and I eventually had spread that out to 14. And going from 12 to 14, my partner Scott, who was lifetime drug free, this dude was a freak. Going from 12 to 14, he goes, I can't do it. I'll be undertrained. And I go, no, you won't. Trust me, I know. Like, I'm watching all you guys. And he's like, I can't do that. I'll be undertrained. And I go, listen, this is normally kind of a democracy, this team, but I'm still the fucking king. And we're going 14 fucking days. And he's like, that's it. I'll train on my own. Well, he didn't. He ended up doing it. And he was like squatting like 930 or something. Running that 14-day cycle, his next meet, he went over 1,000. And as soon as he got that 1,000, he looked over at me and I'm like, and he's like, shut the fuck up. And I go, it worked, didn't it? I go, you got to admit it, dude. I go, you're not undertrained. You just killed it. But it was so set in his head that he needed to do more. He needed to do more. I think about that a lot. Like, I think it's my blue collar upbringing, because it's like, well, you work hard. You work when you're sick. You do a good job. You take pride in the job you do. You take pride in your consistency. But training is just something completely different.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't care who you are. There are few things as satisfying as fucking say I told you so.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great.
That's funny.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
hard
that's
for
like
me. I look back at it and go, every time we spread it out, everybody got stronger. Yet every time I still had to talk myself into doing it.
right. So like when you spread it out, were you doing a little extra GPP in between? Like maybe more walking or like very light type stuff or no?
Yes, it's gotten more now.
Right.
Like now with my guys now, I have a couple of my guys now, we literally train hard. We basically do a dynamic week and a max effort week. But in between there, I'm like, I want them to train every day.
Right. Do
Like,
something.
but it might be 20 minutes of sled dragging. It might be going for walks. It might be, I do a lot of like light GPP stuff. Like I'm a big fan of rings. Like I'll do upper body ring work
Oh,
or
cool.
plyometrics or even just go do band work or even I call them like 100 rep sessions where it's like, dude, I want you to do 100 reps of bench press. I want you to do 100 reps of incline press. I want you to do 100 dumbbell roll back extensions. Because that with 100, and I'm like, you do whatever sets and reps you want. I don't even care. I want 100 reps. Because people hear 100 reps and then they grab a lighter dumbbell. And so it's just about pumping blood. And I mean, I have all these, I'll set my clock I'll set a bunch of dumbbells out in like different little stations and I'll set my clock for 25 minutes. I want to be doing an exercise for 25 minutes. So it's like lay down and do bench presses. Okay, I'm pumped. I can't do no more. Okay, stand up and do lateral raises. Okay. And I just want to be moving for 25 minutes.
Right.
And you can't have heavy dumbbells to keep moving for 25 minutes. But you get done
No.
and you're pumped up and you feel good and you didn't tax your central nervous system. But you got a blood flowing, you got movement, and I think those things help tremendously.
Yeah.
And then when we do
That
get to dynamic or max effort days, the guys feel good and they're actually able to go heavy and push themselves.
right. Right. Yeah, I've been more recently been doing a little more sled work just as like I'll do light, something I can drag for 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and breathe heavy a little bit and sweat and it makes my hips feel so good.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, why the fuck didn't you do more of this? You
Mm-hmm.
dumbass. Because it's like it's hitting all like the small muscles in my hips and stuff that kind of get neglected squatting. I
Right.
feel like, you know what I mean? Little adductor stuff and up high in the hamstrings. And I'm like, fucking so yeah, so I will have my people do more of that. Going
I think
try to
another
do as I say, not as I do.
yeah. Another good GPP one is unilateral stuff too.
Yeah.
Because I find a lot of people. I mean, I've seen some big squatter. Even me at one point, like I could squat 1,200 pounds, but if you had me do a Bulgarian split squat, man, that sucked. So like all them little
It will still
stabilizer
light you up.
muscles weren't getting worked like the big massive groups.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's great what you're doing. I think in the industry of like strength and conditioning, we're seeing a little bit too much single leg stuff, or in my opinion, loading it a little too much,
Mm-hmm.
especially like with our big guys. Like I don't think people realize how much that stuff like you just talked about can beat up like an offensive lineman,
Yeah.
or how taxing that can be. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? For your big bulky guys. Like we used to do that with our throwers. Like I remember when the single leg kind of fad started coming in. I'm like, oh, we'll do some more single leg stuff, and we would introduce it, and they did like 3 sets of 8 reverse dumbbell lunge, kind of light dumbbells, and they were smoked.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, part of that is they weren't used to it, but I think a lot of people see high level coaches doing that and they throw it on their guys right away, and they don't realize how taxing it can be for your bigger guys or people that aren't used to that.
Right.
I'm surprised, and maybe this is happening and it's not public knowledge. Like, I'm surprised we don't see more like adductor pulls and kind of shit like that with some of this stuff. But like I said, maybe it's happening and we just don't know it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're fine. I could be full of shit.
Yeah,
There's
because
that
I've
too.
never really pushed single leg stuff heavy. I mean, I've always thought, well, I'm doing this more for the smaller muscles, so I don't need to kill it with super heavy weight. And like you said,
Right.
if you are going to go super heavy, now you're stressing them smaller muscles way beyond what they need to. And I saw a thing with the sleds. I think I see a lot of people that do sleds and they do like forward and backward dragging, and that's it. And I saw a thing with you where you were doing straight leg walking forward with it through your feet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people understand. Dude, you can do adductors, you can do karaoke walks. I have a whole upper body like sled workout. Like, you can do a lot of shit with the sled that I think people don't understand. And especially if you train at home. If you train at home, like, dude, a sled is a cheap piece of equipment that you can do tons of stuff with. Which brings me to my next question. So you are like, isn't it you and God damn it, why is this fucking brain fart? At Elite, the equipment guys. You and Matt, yeah. Matt Goodwin. Jeez, why did that slip my head?
It's all right.
I
forget his name too.
It's fun to, like, I was flipping through your Instagram the other day and I'm like, dude, these high school setups are fucking awesome, man.
Dude, it's ridiculous. Yeah, we got so Matt's like our sales director. And then we recently, Chris has been there. We got another guy out on the West Coast, Chris Bartle. And then we just got a guy southeast, Luke Coleman just came on. So there's actually 4 of us now, but it was just me and Matt Matt was there like 10 years before me. And and then they brought me on. Matt was there. I worked with Matt when I redid the room when I was coaching at UB.
Okay.
So that's how I knew Matt. And it's funny. He actually, so when I was done coaching, we had a new AD come in, kind of didn't agree what I was doing, and I didn't get renewed or whatever. I had no fucking clue what I was going to do. Like this, I put all my eggs in the strength coach basket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, I have no clue what I'm going to do with this. And he was like, they had one of those underground training sessions that summer. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not sure what I said, I need to go down to this and just talk to people and maybe I can get some ideas of, so I don't have to go pack groceries or whatever. And she's like, okay, so I went down and I was about to leave and Matt pulls in and he goes, and he was asking if I was going to be there and stuff. And he's like, hey man, we might have a spot open up. Would you be interested? And I'd been reading Elite since 2000. You know what I mean? Like I was on the site all the time, reading all the training logs and all this shit. He's like, we might have a job. Would you be interested? I was like, fuck yeah. And I go, well, wait, what is it? And he goes, well, I want to bring another sales guy on. And I was like, I go, I'm totally in, dude, but I am not a salesman. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll get you in, just your background and stuff. I think it'll be a good fit. And we just got to get Dave on board and stuff. So it was like that summer, I would call him like once a week, like, hey, what's going on? Is Dave okay with this? Like, because my paychecks are going around in August. So I was like freaking out a little bit, He's like, don't worry about it. We'll get it going, just be patient. And I'm back home freaking out. And I had an old baseball player who was opening a local facility. And I saw on Instagram, I was like, hey, dude, don't tell anybody, but I might be getting this job with a lead or whatever. If you need some equipment, let me know. He's like, yeah, come on over. And he ended up like buying like 10 grand worth of stuff or whatever. So I called Matt. I'm like, hey, this dude wants to spend 10 grand or whatever. He was like, okay, let's fucking get this hammered out. He's like, come down. We'll get your paperwork filled out, get it all taken care of. So I go down and we're hanging out at the office and stuff, and they were having pizza in the office. So we're in there getting pizza, and Dave walks in and he goes, "Oh, hey, what are you doing in town?" And I'm like, "This son of a bitch, he didn't fucking say anything to Dave about any of this." And I drove 6 hours down here, and like, so I'm freaking out again. So we're sitting there eating pizza, and Tracy comes in, and I'm sitting next to Matt, and she's sitting across the table from me. And I'm trying, at this point, I'm just like trying to keep my head down, and hopefully she doesn't notice me. And she's like, "Oh, what's going on with your job stuff, Nate? You having any luck or whatever?" And I kind of like, Matt's sitting right next to me. I'm like looking like this. I'm like, "Dude, are you gonna fucking say something?" And he's like, "Oh, well, Nate's we're kind of going over some. I'm showing Nate some sales stuff, and we're kind of going over some things." And so I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" So I'm like, "Okay, I'm going out to train." I go out and train, and he comes out when I was finishing up. He's like, "All right, dude, we got you." And they bought it. It was basically because I like had that order.
Yeah.
He like basically said to them like, "Hey, look, he's got, he can get some leads and stuff and help us out. So let's try to do something." So he comes out. He's like, "Dude, they fell. He's like, they're okay with it. It's cool." I was like, "You son of a bitch!" Like, I was
That's
freaking out.
that
But yeah,
seems
that's
like
kind of how
Matt.
it all came to be. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so funny.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, there's some of these high school rooms it's stupid, man. It's awesome because like I grew up in a like really small school. We
Mhm.
didn't have a weight room. Like my weight room is at home. So like kind of my whole idea going into this was like, let's get these kids some really cool shit in their weight room and like hopefully get them into training. Like I think with the logos and stuff, you can kind of get some of those kids that are on the fence about trade, like they come in and see the cool, their school colors and all that
Mhm.
stuff, and
Mhm.
maybe get those kids that are on the fence, get them into the weight room a little more. And then, I kind of I'm trying to kind of like the bigger, faster, stronger thing. That was the big thing when I was growing up, but I want to go in and like show the coaches how to coach their kids.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's, where we're missing a lot. Like a lot of times in a high school, it's just a math teacher or, the football coach has to do
Mhm.
extra work and watch the weight room. Like everybody bitches about the shitty lifting we see on Instagram and stuff. Well, let's teach the coaches how to coach. So I'm trying to get out and do more of that. So like give them some cool equipment and get some coaching and some good stuff going in the weight rooms at the same time.
Yeah, it's actually that's a cool idea. I do think because I looked at a couple of them and I'm like, dude, that's a nice. That's a high school. What? Like I thought they were like college gyms. But yeah, a high school kid could go in there and see that and be like, dude, this is like a college. This is like a nice gym. This is cool. But yeah,
Yeah,
if they're gonna spend 10, 20, $50,000, why wouldn't they spend a few thousand more and get guys out to kind of help whoever's running the program and get them squared away and using the equipment and all that stuff? That just seems like a no brainer to me.
yeah, like we've done that on a few installs. Like we'll install and then I can hang out an extra day and
Mm-hmm.
they'll set up like the clinic the day after or whatever, and they can charge admission they can set that off however they want, charge admission for other people to come in and check it out, or we can do like an extra training. We can build it into the
Mm-hmm.
cost of the room, just get everybody on board, get all the phys ed teachers in there and, do continuing education with them and stuff too.
Yeah.
I've actually been doing some of that kind of like for free in my area. Like if you're within an hour and you want me to come in and do a clinic with your coaches and show them how to do stuff, I'll go do it. It's an hour drive and a few hours of my time.
Mm-hmm.
If it can help and kind of, I feel like in Western New York we're kind of behind on that stuff. Like when I first started, we did a clinic at a school that I did their room in. The strength coach, he did a really good job. Like a few months later, set up a big clinic and stuff. We got like 70 people there.
Wow.
And I got up to speak and I asked, how many of you in here have been to something like this locally within the last 5 years? And there was like two hands that went up.
Wow.
So like, there's nothing, you know what I mean? There's not resources here for people to learn. And I'm trying to change that and kind of hopefully bring the standard up a little bit. You know what I mean?
That's kind of an interesting point though, because like I think with like when we grew up, there wasn't a lot of information. You had to really search for information, which I think is a good thing because you need it, or it shows that you want it. But now there's so much information on the internet, but the difference between reading stuff and a being there in person with somebody is a huge difference. Like even going back to what we talked about earlier, like I can't believe how many clients come up to me after seminars and they're like, Chad, we didn't even really lift anything today and I'm utterly exhausted. I'm like, yeah, that's because you learned what intent was today. You know, and that's like we said, that's so hard to write an article about or do a video about. Like when you have people there and I'm screaming at them to get tighter, then they kind of get it.
Yeah. Like most of the time, you like in my experience, you can get probably 75% of the room to kind of understand a box squat and how to do it right
Mm-hmm.
within a session.
Yeah.
You know, they're not completely technically proficient, but they kind of get, like you talked about, they get the intent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like if you do that and have your kids run through a 1 day thing, like it makes all the difference.
And I mean,
Just like I talked about when I got to go train with Paul and those guys. I studied this stuff for 10 years prior to that.
mm-hmm.
But once I got to experience it, my strength just took off.
Yeah. I had the same with Dave. I had the same thing. Like I'm studying all this West Side stuff. I'm studying Louis stuff, and afterwards, I had to go. I had to go up to go, Dave. Like I've been studying this stuff, and what you just explained to me seems really simple. Did I fuck up somewhere or something? And he's like, no, this is what it is. It's hard to get from the way Louis writes it or from these articles. But being there asking questions is such a big difference. And even with my online clients, I do like weekly video reviews. And I have it set up so they can see me and I can slow mo it and point at each little thing, you know, which is great.
Right.
That was a huge advancement for me in helping people online, but it's still not the same as in person. Like in person is so much different. Which is funny because
it's so much more efficient.
Seminars can be hard to book for people. And I'm like, man, like I'm going to tell you the best, I don't know, $300 I ever spent was my first seminar with Dave, without a doubt. Best money towards lifting I ever spent.
$300, huh?
I think it was $250 or $300. I think, yeah.
Yeah. It's actually like it's hard to get people to come out for seminars. I've found.
Yeah, I don't do
like
that. I don't do that many anymore.
Yeah, you got to work. You know the like. So I was doing them for a while too, and like if the coach at the spot you're going to go present at doesn't have a lot of local connections or do some work recruiting, you won't get a lot of people. It's tough. And I try to help as much as I can. Instagram, I'll run ads. I'll do paid ads and stuff. And it's tough to get a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird. It seems like I would think people would jump at the opportunity to do that.
I would think maybe I don't have enough internet clout.
Yeah,
maybe that's a me problem.
Me either. So with Elite, do you help a lot of like individual people, or is it mostly businesses? Like, do you guys help people set up? Say, I train people out of my garage. I have the basic stuff, but I think you can do a shit ton with the basic stuff. So, like, if somebody's on Elite and they're like, I want to start a home gym, but I don't know what, they can call you guys and you'll kind of go, hey, listen, here's my experience. This is what you need, and if you have money for this too, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Like we service everybody, like home gyms, pro teams, high schools, college, commercial gyms. And that's my big thing. Like I hate seeing people spend money on shit they're not going to use.
Yeah.
Like for example, the jammer arms on the racks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like a real popular thing the last few years. But a lot of the time, in my experience, like the coach will get them and then not use them very much.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I don't like to talk people out of stuff, but I'll kind of give them a heads up, like, hey, make sure you're actually, if you only have this amount of money, it might be better spent over here. Or,
Right.
I try to, if I know someone's budget, I'm going to try to get them the most stuff that I can. I'm not there. There's other companies that will like, oh, your budget's like, they'll try to sell a high school a room full of machines because the machines cost more and the guy's going to make more on the commission.
Right.
Like I go into a high school weight room and I see it full of machines and it makes me absolutely crazy. So we're trying to help the kids out and help performance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
And I think it's funny because I think I was actually talking about this with one of my clients yesterday about all the trendy shit that keeps going on. And it's funny to me how trendy stuff comes back around. Like this whole like cold bath thing is not new. Like this is like the fifth wave of cold baths. But everybody's like, "Oh, got to do a cold bath now." And there's all these trends and I like to look at it and go, "What stood the test of time?" People been using dumbbells
Right.
and barbells through all of these waves. There was people using these consistently and getting results. So like, let's just cut to the chase, go to the shit that works. And if you have extra money for some trendy shit that you want to play with, cool, but you don't need it.
Yeah, we ran into that. Like when I first started coaching in college, it was like early 2000s, and it was like right in the middle of like the functional training.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does this movement transfer to the field? You know, dude, just get them stronger, and you'll take care of 99% of your problems.
Yep.
But that's not sexy. You know
Even
what I
like
mean? So it's
I have a bunch of blood flow restriction cuffs. Partially because I'm masochistic and like I like to make my clients do that shit. But I mean honestly, like they're great and I think they work and I think they have a place. I hardly ever use them anymore. Cuz it's like
right.
it's great, but like what percent is this actually helping? If it's 0.001% increase, it's probably not really worth my time. Kind of like I think people get too far into like again, they're going to the top of the tree. It's like, dude, just pick the low fruit that's right there, dude. It's going to give you the best results.
Yep. Yep. I always go back, like, think of like when you were a high school athlete, the hardest teams to play against were the ones that were really good at the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I kind of look at training the same way. Like, do the basics really well, and if you get halfway decent at those, you're going to be ahead of most people
Mm-hmm.
because most people don't really drill on that stuff and work on that stuff.
And then if you do want to progress later, now you have the basics and you're going to have the base to build on top of that.
Right. Yeah, and it's actually going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time and a place for the bells and whistles, but
Yeah. And as you get, it's all going to get harder as you get stronger. So for me, the idea, and when I have young kids, is to teach them that like, here's what we're doing now, but this is not always what we're going to do. So they have an idea what the future is, but focus on this right now. Just get good at these. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think you can just bench, squat, and deadlift all the time. You need to do the other stuff, but I mean, get good at these lifts. You're gonna see a lot of change, and then go from there. It's kind of like all the people that like even weight loss. They're like, I got to figure out my exact macros and I got to measure everything. And I'm like, hey, why don't you just start out by figuring your basal metabolic rate and trying to go a couple hundred calories less than that? Why don't you just start there? And then we can start working into your other stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're going from eating whatever you want to wanting to weigh every single thing that you're going to eat. Like you're just going to piss yourself off and not do it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Don't eat out of a box so much. For 1 week, don't eat anything that comes in a box.
Yeah, what do they say?
See how much better you feel.
When you go to the grocery store, don't go down the aisles, buy the stuff on the outsides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
Even that would make a big difference for a lot of people, I think.
Oh yeah.
Nate,
absolutely.
It was awesome having you on. It was awesome catching up. I can't believe it's funny because I'm kind of a hermit myself, but it's funny how many people I've run into and I'm always like, God damn it, I wish I could just sit down and talk with them more. because when I do see people, it's like at a seminar or, at a meet or something like that. And I know we've ran into each other multiple times, but we've never actually got to sit down and talk. And it's something I've always thought, God, I got to talk to Nate.
Well, it's been really cool, watching you lift back in the day and stuff, and being a fan. Been a privilege for me, that's for sure.
Me too. So we got Nate Harvey 2450 on Instagram, which I recommend. Go follow Nate. He has a lot of cool videos and stuff in there. You have Conjugate U, which that's the YouTube, right?
Yep.
And it's just under Conjugate U. I can't remember now. I follow it. I think I follow it. I know I watch your videos. There's a lot of good videos on there. Definitely, if you have any questions about equipment, looking to buy stuff, call Nate on that one. He's got great advice. I've actually had some people go, hey, I talked to Nate and I ordered this on Elite. And I'm like, good. Nate knows what he's talking about. He'll set you straight.
Cool.
And, man, I really appreciate you being on. And let's stay in touch. And hopefully I'll be back out to Elite at some point here in the near future.
Yes. Hopefully me too. It's been a little while. I need to get my ass out there.
It's my little home away from home.
I know. It's like go be around like-minded people. It's like a meathead vacation.
I've told people that. I used to love the underground strength sessions because it was like when I go to a public gym now, it just like it drives me nuts. Like there's just so many things that just irritate me. And like I would go to those sessions and I'm like, oh yeah, man, looking around and like everybody's doing good shit. And even if it's not something I agree with, I know they know what they're doing and I know they have a purpose for it, which is even bigger to me. And it's so you're like, it's just like, I'm comfortable. This is cool here. I like it here.
Yeah, I'm not such a weirdo. There's more people like me.
Oh, what did you think though when you first went to the new Elite? The first time I drove out there, I'm like, what? Is my MapQuest telling me the wrong way to go? Like, where the fuck is this place?
I know, right? I think Dave did that on purpose.
It's like, turn by the church. What? Where am I
at? When they first built that, I asked Dave, I go, so Dave, like every meathead has like their dream gym they're going to build someday. I go, is this it? Did you nail it? He goes, I don't know. I just see a lot of debt right now. I was like, fair. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's cool. It's super cool.
I love it out there. All right, sir. Thanks for being on. I'm going to hit my little outro here.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.